So former student GMIT, would have been in here with Jim O'Connor, Mary Rogers, and then I was in the same class as Jared Nicholson. So probably since then I've been with Sisk, started off as a site engineer and probably worked my way up. When I would have been with Sisk, when I started with them first, there was no BIM strategy within the company. So since then I'm probably on a 6-year period where I'm trying to introduce new techniques, lean process, get the site engineers setting out using a 3D model, engaging with design teams, architects, clients. So really it's been probably a process over the last couple of years and just developing since then. Would have been architecture technology that I was studying, but I would have come from a construction background, so the family business we would have been main contractors, so I was always trying to get back in the main contractors and the construction industry. So today I'm going to talk about 4D construction sequencing. Just as you go. So 4D BIM. I'll just give a quick overview of Sisk. So really established in 1859, one of the largest construction groups in Ireland, the UK, 5th generation family business, market leading contractors for over 50 years, reputation of leading large projects and working with industry leading clients, strong culture of safety and delivering quality, over 30 years in the construction market and annual turnover of over 1 billion. So probably on that, I could even have to say myself, it is a family-run business. Like the likes of Owen, Sisk and directors to be in the office, and if you had something that you'd like to put forward or you had an idea, it's that type of a business where you can actually probably develop your ideas, and they're very helpful in terms of any training or any innovation that you might be bringing towards the company. In terms of experience with BIM, so the UCD Science Centre is probably one of the first projects that would have taken as a pilot project for introducing BIM within Sisk. Before then you had the Aviva Stadium, so I suppose on that you had the facade structure that would have been done using Tekla, where they actually the facade would have been done using Tekla for the model, and that's what they were actually producing the facade in. But for an actual full BIM project, the UCD Science Centre would have been the first project in which Sisk took it upon themselves to really develop the architects or design teams design and develop a 3D model from that. So then since then you've your Microsoft data centers, so we would have been there over the last 10 years working with Microsoft, and again that's an international client where they weren't engaged with BIM and it was something that we were bringing to the table, and since then we've developed the requirements. So we're on the next phase on that project, and we've full it's a BIM hub out on site that we have essentially an office where we have the design team, subcontractors, main contractors based in the one location, and we have the model and they're coordinating the model right throughout the project, and the engineers are coming in, they're getting their information, they're setting out, so it's a lean construction process. We're introducing that on this project, but now Microsoft is I suppose speaking to us, and we're looking to introduce that process globally going forward. So then the CERC, which was the Limerick University Hospital, so we've just handed over that project in December. It's the first BIM level 2 public works contract where it would have been continued right from design during construction, and now we've developed it in a way that we've handed over into operations. So we've met with the HSC and their operations team in terms of how they're going to update the model throughout operations, and as Ralph was saying, it's about managing the information and how is the information going to develop right throughout the life cycle of the building. Allergan Biologics 2, that would have been one of the first projects that I was involved in, so I'll be lead on that job. And there was a number of different contractors on the job that we took along the journey with us, Kirby's, Ardmac, Mourns. I suppose it would have been one of the first projects for a lot of us in the industry to be introduced to BIM, and since then most of the companies coming out of that project are now all operating in BIM on every project going forward. Okay, so look, I'll dive into the 4D side of it. So really just a quick overview, as Ralph was kind of explaining the different dimensions within BIM. So you have your 3D, which is a 3D model, so it's design, review, clash, section, coordination, concept design, detailed design, and design for manufacturing and assembly, which we'll be doing a lot in terms of the retrofit and pharma jobs. We'll be doing a lot of prefab information, or prefabbing a lot of the services before it actually come to site. So then 4D is a topic that I'm going to discuss today. So it's your planning, logistics, construction sequencing, health and safety, program management. 5D, which is your bill of quantities, cost management. 6D, sustainability analysis, and 7D, your facilities management. So as I was saying, I'm going to discuss the topic of 4D, but we're currently operating on different projects. Some projects were just operating in 3D, some projects was just 3D and 4D, and some projects we're operating right at the 7D. So it depends on what client you're working with, if it's a public sector, private client, and really what's the requirements, because if it's not a requirement to carry out facilities management in terms of linking it to a 3D model, there's a lot of added work on the main contractor, on the supply chain, and if it's something that the client's not asking for at handover, well then it might necessarily be the route would be taken. But essentially, the ideal project would be if the client is asking for all of these things and it's a BIM level 2 project and they have their standards set up and the design team followed it, and we can just roll that out on the project. But it's not always the reality when you come to a projects in the industry today. So an introduction to 4D. So essentially, a well-structured bill and information model is extremely useful resource for all the project team members. By linking scheduled data to different components, you can generate accurate program information to enable a step-by-step visual of your project's development. This process is known as 4D BIM. 4D BIM is a process of linking time to a construction project in a 3D environment. This project involves linking a 3D model and construction program with a direct link to each activity of the Gantt chart. So the Gantt chart, so probably if construction management would be your construction program, which you can develop in either Asta Power Project, Primavera, or MicroStation. So you'd link this physically to your 3D model. These animated models represent the planned construction sequence set against time. So even as Ralph was saying, this probably in terms of BIM level 2, 4D isn't actual a BIM a requirement on BIM level 2, although it is a benefit to the project. It's not, you're not contracted in to produce a 4D model or 5D on the projects, but it definitely brings benefit, and as the main contractor we'll be trying to introduce 4D on every project we'll be developing BIM on. So 4D, really just some of the things that will be included. So 4D involves time-related activities linked to your BIM model. This includes the following: so your design phase, your production of information. In terms of if it's a design and build or for traditional build, actual production of information, if you can link that physically to your model, you can see how your model is going to develop at an early stage. The start date on site, bulk dig, excavation period, temporary works, demolition, construction, installation period, fit out period, commission and handover, and construction phases. If your project is going to be built in different phases, you can quite easily show that on a 4D model, which we've had to do in a lot of cases where it might be a phased construction sequence and the client is going to be occupying the building, and we'd have to show how we're going to phase the construction. So that would draw us straight to developing a model, construction program, and developing a 4D construction sequence. So the real people that benefit from this is the contracts managers and planners can easily develop an accurate construction program for the project based on better understanding of the project and the sequence of work. So the next point is just briefly is really around the software that you'd be using. So as I mentioned with the Gantt chart, you could either be using Asta, Primavera to develop your Gantt chart, so your actual construction program. So there's different platforms out there at the minute that you can then take that construction program on your 3D model and then start linking the two together. So Asta Power Project, essentially I'd say 80% of our projects in Ireland would be using Asta Power Project for developing the construction program. So all of our planners, our contracts managers, senior engineers, they're using Asta Power Project. Then you have Autodesk Navisworks, which has a 4D functionality in the package, and then Synchro Professional, which is actually dedicated to 4D planning software. I suppose in terms of the software, like that's really if you were planning on first time trying to develop a construction sequence or trying to get yourself involved in it, Navisworks is probably the best tool to get started with. But if you're really taking this that you wanted to develop it going forward and you wanted to update it, Sync will probably be the one of choice, and it probably seems to be the package that is probably at the forefront currently at the industry, and now Ask the Power project has a BIM solution that you can now import IFC models, which is a file format, into your Ask the Power project, and you can start linking that to your model. So preference, I'd probably be working with Synchro, and we develop the models in Synchro, and then we'd use that going forward, just because of the reliability and the outputs we can get. Because in some cases we'd have a tender period where we'd have to turn around these models within a 2-week period, and you'd have to produce that back to your clients. So you'd have to have your design review meetings, you'd have to have all your review meetings done with your project team, and a lot of the sequence of works might have changed. So in a 2-week period, you don't want to be taking risk in terms of the outputs that you can get with the different packages. So 40, the way, if I'm going to go starting a 40 construction sequence, I'd say to any contracts manager or senior planner, really 3 things that I'm going to need on the job to get started. Develop your construction program. So as I was saying, Ask the Power project, and then with that you'd have to just make sure what version you're going to be working on in terms of how you're going to develop your program and what version it's going to be on. Then develop your construction methodology. So that's really how you're going to go about building your building. This can be done in PowerPoint, it can be done freehand on sketches. Essentially this will be the contracts manager, senior engineer, your engineers in the job, telling you how you're going to go about building the building. How you're going to start your bulk dig, how you're going to start your foundations, how you're going to start your forced slab pours, how your slab is going to be poured, how your steel is going to start being erected, how your facade is going to go on, right through to your finishes. So those decisions have to be made from your contracts manager, your senior engineers, and your planners on the site. That can't be left to a BIM engineer or a BIM coordinator making these decisions of how the building is going to be built. So really with this, it's a full project team effort that you have the right people in the room making the right decisions. The step 3 then would be physically when you would have the likes of the BIM engineer on the job, and he's carrying out the task of physically linking the tasks on the program to your items in your 3D model, and you create sets within your 3D model. So and I'll talk a wee bit about that in a second. So the management of 4D BIM. So as you can see there, it's an open conversation that you'd have on a project. And again, as I was saying, ensure the correct professionals are making the project decisions. So you have your contracts manager saying, I want the site compound set up in this corner, I want site boundary, I want traffic management coming in. And then your senior engineer saying, yeah, well, it's best we start the bulk excavation this way so we can start building a road as we're working our way out. That you're making these decisions with your project team, and it's not left to either a BIM engineer or a BIM coordinator on site that shouldn't really be taking on these decisions. This should be made from the project team. So as I said, I'd either go to the contract manager. I said, look, if we're under pressure, just get a couple of A3s, sketch out what way you want to go about building the project, hand them over to me, and at least I can understand how he's going to go about building it. Then some people might mark it up in PowerPoint, but again, as I said, if you sketch it out, quick process to get the construction methodology started. The next thing is ensuring the file name and version remains the same for the project duration. So I'm not going to go too much into, I suppose, BIM level 2 and file name and that side of things, but this all ties in to your information and how you're managing your projects. And this is key to ensuring that the link between your 3D model and your program maintains the same right throughout construction. If at some stage your contract manager starts your program, he hands it on to a planner, the planner changes the name on the program, then you're going to lose the link between the model and your construction program. So it's something that you have to, at the start of the job, this is what the program's going to be named, this is how we're going to name the model, and if you have a number of different models, that those names remain the same, so that you can have an automatic and you can synchronize your program as it's developing. So if your design team is still developing your model and you might get an update within 2 weeks, if you have the same file name, then you should be fit to synchronize, and you should keep the link between your construction program and your model. The next thing will be agree dates, draft review, deadlines. So really, as I said, in some cases we might have a 2-week turnaround, but ideally if you had 6-week turnaround to turn around a 40 construction sequence, or a detailed construction sequence, that you'd outline when I'm going to get my construction program, when I'm going to get my construction methodology, and when I have a 3D model to start with, and if I don't have a 3D model, how long do I need to develop that 3D model. So I suppose these would be things that you'd sit down and you'd map out at the start of the project, and making sure that you're tracking that right throughout the job. So agree communication and meetings. So if it was a 6-week turnaround, that you'd have a review meeting after the first 2 weeks. You'd review, see where your model is. Do you have your site set up, compound, logistics, all of that developed at this stage? Is your construction program nearly finished? Is your construction methodology? And if you set these meetings that they're productive and that you're coming out of the meeting and you know that, right, in 2 days time or 3 days time I have to have a review of the construction sequence. So live review meetings. So in a lot of cases, if it's a project-based 4D model, that you would be using this, and you might have everyone based in the one room, so you can make those decisions. You'd have your contract manager, your planner, your construction, or your BIM engineer, all based on site, and I suppose it's a team effort developing the model throughout the job. But in a lot of cases, your project team might be based on the one site. So what we've found in the past that like even for myself, I'd be based in Dublin in the head office, but I'd be working on a number of different projects around the country, but I'd be using Skype as a communication tool. So I'd log on to the computer, I'd show the synchro model, and I'd be fit to explain to the contract manager, here's where we are on this project at the minute. He can start making decisions, but it's a communication tool that really making yourself more productive, efficient, and really getting answers to some of the things. Yeah. So I'll just skim through a couple of things in this here. So again, that's physically just showing you have your Gantt chart and you have your 3D model, and you're physically linking items to your 3D model. So I'll just give you some examples of the projects. So with this here, essentially, you can see at the start, and I've sped this up just because of the length of the video. This would have been done in Google Earth, and it's quite simple and effective, but the client was actually based in the States, and we had to give them an understanding of the project and where they're going to be based. So we've done this in Google Earth just as an intro to the construction sequence. Then we actually linked this into, this is Synchro that we're currently using. So on this here, you'll be using for your better project understanding and awareness of the whole project team, traffic management, logistics, site setup, site boundaries, better communication to the clients, minimizing risk due to better planning, optimizing construction methodology, and give confidence to clients based on the construction program. So with this, there's a number of different ways you can carry out a 4D model. You can have a timeline running across the top or the bottom of it, or else you could just have bullet points showing at the different phases of the project. So this is Capital Dock where we're currently, so this was key probably to making the decision to the client that we could meet the program, when they could move into the building, the fit out, and how we're going to be actually affecting the surrounding buildings. So we did a number of different reviews of this construction sequence, but you can see even how the slab is split up there. That we would have been a project that the client was, I suppose this was a requirement during the tendering period with the client, and it was key to probably making the decision. And there's a number of different contracts that would be involved, and this seems to be a big part of it. A number of the big public works contracts is now becoming a requirement that you either have to provide a 10-minute or 3-minute long construction sequence of how you're going to go with building to building. Essentially, that's a 4D BIM model, and now it's becoming contracted into the projects. So tight for time here, but I'll just give you a quick overview. There's a couple of examples here. So on this here, when we're actually starting on site now, it's just after St. Patrick's weekend, and this will be how we're going to integrate with a live environment. So this is the Bonds Hospital in Cork, and so we're maintaining a live building during operations, interactive with the public and staff. So the client, they had a car park, they wanted to see how they can get access to the back car park throughout the construction of the project. So we were fit to really show that we maintain a full access road throughout the project for really to give confidence to the client that they have a fully operational building throughout the construction. So better understanding, clear communication, safety awareness, public awareness. So then this again will be showing your safety inductions to your site team, telling the lads, look at this is where the construction sequence is going to be for the next couple of weeks, and this gives confidence to the client again to really show how we're going to go about constructing the building. So then this here would be Wembley Parade in London. And then on the right hand side you can see this is kind of dealing more towards the fit out and actual construction sequence floor by floor. So we have a table on the right hand side, and then on the left we have a legend that we've work complete, work in progress, and work incomplete. So you can see as we're going up floor by floor, we're seeing if we have our windows complete, our scaffolding, our brickwork, our scaffolding, strike, and then our balconies. And so on the right hand side you can see how we're demonstrating that to the client, and there's a number of different ways, but just on this one I suppose this is for residential and high-rise buildings. The next thing that we'll be looking at, the A19 in Newcastle. So this is a project where it's a BIM level 2 project, and I suppose it was mandated that the client wanted to see a construction sequence carried out right throughout the project. That we had this on our progress reports, that we showed a sequence of work, the construction durations, that we had multi-activities in the same location, that all the roads were still live throughout it, and then what we had, the construction sequence that we're showing is actually a planned and actual. So we're planned to be in construction where we actually are, if we're ahead or behind in certain activities. The next is just quickly showing you an overview. So that's actually the construction progress currently on site. So you can see this is a key to probably with the client and the progress report meetings, that you can kind of determine where we are on site and how that relates back to your 4D construction sequence. And the next, just quickly on live projects. So a former student is currently working on this project now at the minute, and one of his roles on a weekly basis is updating the 4D construction sequence, so that during our safety inductions, that the site team would be up on 2,000 staff on peak on this project, that they would all be seeing how they're going to enter the site, what's the weekly look ahead, and what's the progress report. And so one of the activities that that our BIM engineer, that's working on the job, he updates this model on a weekly basis, and then this is part of as you're coming into the site, this is shown on the screen, it's shown on the canteen, and on the whiteboard meetings that we'd have the synchro model, and we can actually navigate around it and show where the construction sequence is actually happening throughout the project. So again, as I was saying, you can just see that I suppose the benefits then, bringing this then tied into with drone footage on site. So we actually have drone footage on site that we can overlay beside your 4D construction sequence. So quite quickly the client can see, well, actually you're ahead or you're behind, and it's just another added benefit to what we're currently doing out on site. From that, you can then take snapshots and mark them up for your progress report and live examples. So these will be done weekly, saying where the activities are happening on the site. And really the project team is now, this is where they're going to see how we're getting on construction program. And as I said, this project in particular, we've demonstrated this to the client. The client is sold on it, and now he wants us to demonstrate this to different contractors globally. With that, you have better communication across the whole project team, so you get your project teams involved, and then out on site, we're showing the weekly activities happening on site. So just to close that, just really the key benefits to 4D BIM. So your clear communication in real time, side-by-side scenarios, troubleshoot and optimize the delivery, approach, support and distribution, delivery team, and integrated supply chain, existing site constraints, services, utilities, temporary works model, building sequence defined in model, construction sequencing for visual from program, and time duration outputs, fed cost assumptions. So really with that 4D BIM, like as I said, on every project where we'd have a 3D model, we'd be trying to introduce 4D BIM on the project, and the clients is now becoming a requirement from the clients in a lot of contracts. So there's different ways of going about it, and probably the starting point, as I said, might be Navisworks, but if it's going to be something that you're going to be updating on a weekly basis, then Synchro probably would be the best platform to go forward with. Just probably when I am here as well, that would be there would be positions within Sisk where the contract managers are now looking for engineers coming through that have these skills, that can update the 4D program on a weekly basis, and so it's a skill that it's a requirement, and there's a niche in the industry at the minute for people with these skills. So that's it. Thanks very much.